Australia will become the first country in the world to ban social media for under 16s after a bill was passed today in the country's Senate. Here in the UK, figures show that a fifth of children aged between 8 and 17 have lied about their age to sign up for social media accounts. Ofcom says that number has remained unchanged for the last 2 years, despite technology companies introducing new restrictions.
Let's take you back to those protests that are underway now in Georgia, in Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. Also protests in other Georgian towns and cities we are hearing. And they've erupted after the Georgian Prime Minister said that the country will not pursue accession to the European Union for several more years until 2028. He's accused the EU of blackmail, and in response to that decision, people have taken to the streets to protest because they see that their dream of membership of the European Union is falling away.
French judges presiding over a trial of Marine Le Pen will deliver a verdict on March 31st next year. The leader of France's far-right National Rally Party is facing charges for allegedly misusing public funds. Prosecutors have presented evidence showing that Ms. Le Pen, alongside 26 other members of her party, illegally used EU funds to pay for their party's expenses. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has announced plans to approve an additional 2.3 billion euros in aid after deadly flooding in the city of Valencia last month. Mr. Sanchez continues to defend his government after widespread protests and criticism from the regional government that national authorities didn't give enough warning before heavy rains triggered the country's worst floods in decades. And before we go, the U.S. astronauts on the International Space Station say they're ready to celebrate Thanksgiving with their own twist on the classic turkey dinner.
Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, apples and spice.
Smoked turkey.
And smoked turkey. It's going to be delicious.
Yeah, I think that might be a slightly different recipe than what most of us may be cooking at home, but they'll be celebrating nonetheless up in the space station. A bit busier than usual, of course. Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore still stuck there 6 months longer than they'd planned.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that a Chinese ship's crew deliberately dragged an anchor for more than 100 miles to cut critical data cables in the Baltic Sea. The investigators are questioning whether the crew of the Chinese-owned ship was instigated by Russian intelligence to carry out the sabotage. Russia denies involvement in the incident, the latest in a series of attacks on Europe's critical infrastructure. Seoul has experienced its largest ever recorded November snowfall. Officials recorded 16.5 centimetres or 6.5 inches of snow, breaking a previous record of 12.4 centimetres set in 1972. The snowstorm cut power, grounded more than 200 flights, and led to road closures throughout the South Korean capital. At least 2 people were killed in road accidents, and more snow is expected throughout the rest of the week.
Our headlines today. The Metropolitan Police says it's investigating at least 5 people who may have assisted or enabled Mohammed Al-Fayed's sexual offences.
Liz Hatton, the 17-year-old photographer who inspired the Princess of Wales while facing a rare form of cancer, has died.
Labour's biggest union backer, Unite, applies to the High Court to try to overturn the cut in winter fuel payments.
Good morning. Scams that lock you out of your online accounts and trick people into giving away personal details are on the rise.
A new way of treating serious asthma and COPD attacks has been described as a game-changer by researchers. A recent study says offering patients an injection which targets white blood cells to reduce lung inflammation is more effective than the current care of steroid tablets and would cut the need for further treatment by 30%. Voters in the Republic of Ireland head to the polls tomorrow in a general election tipped by many to be tightly contested. Pressures around housing, immigration and public services have dominated the campaign. The outgoing government, made up of a coalition of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, has already ruled out a partnership with the nearest opposition party, Sinn Féin. We'll take a look at the papers, I think. The front of the Daily Mirror is focusing on a new investigation into the people it believes may have assisted or enabled Mohammed Al-Fayed's sexual offences, reporting that associates of the former Harrods boss are being questioned by the Metropolitan Police after 90 alleged new victims came forward.
The Daily Telegraph reflecting on Kemi Badenoch's first major speech as Conservative Party leader, which included an admission the last government got it wrong on immigration. We'll have more on this a little later on this morning. The Shadow Home Secretary, Phil, 6:50, and the Minister for Migration and Citizenship, Seema Malhotra, joins us at 7:30. Guardian's featuring some of the people returning to Lebanon after a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel came into effect yesterday. Paper reports that motorways were packed with vehicles, despite warnings from the Israeli military to avoid the area.
Finally, The Times is looking at Britain's approach to online dating, saying that the number of people using dating apps has fallen for the first time. Negative experiences could be the reason that people are returning to the old-fashioned way, dating in person.
Just in the papers, you know, people sometimes say good with names, not good with faces. Or good with faces, not good with names. People say, you know, they can do one or the other.
Yeah, I'm like that.
Which?
Better with faces, terrible with names.
OK, so if you're bad with faces, scientists at the University of Bournemouth have been looking into this, and they are saying that face blindness, as it's known, should be termed as a medical condition, a proven medical condition. The name is prosopagnosia. Prosopagnosia, affecting, they say, at least 2% of people. Symptoms include being unable to spot a person in a crowd, confusing television characters, and an avoidance of using a person's name for fear of getting it wrong.
I do that.
Well, they're saying that it's a known condition. What they're saying is it should actually be a medical condition as opposed to just a trait. They studied 300 Britons who had the disorder from birth, and they're saying it should be classified like dyspraxia or dyslexia as a proper condition, because it's a very real thing that affects people's everyday lives.
Also, it stops people... If you have something, you can explain it, then it stops people being offended.
And it gets written off.
Their names or
it also gets written off as just,
being lazy.
Don't be so silly, or, you know. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. Prosopagnosia.
It's a new word, isn't it, for the Mexican?
There we go.
And the Radio 2 presenter Zoe Ball has revealed she has a medical condition that gives her awful headaches when she wakes up. The broadcaster, who recently announced that she was leaving the breakfast show, said she has TMJ, a painful condition which affects the movement of the jaw.
At 6, MasterChef's Greg Wallace is to stop presenting while allegations of misconduct are investigated. The claims revealed by the BBC are from more than a dozen people and cover a period of 17 years. Also tonight, the Prime Minister promises to turn the page on immigration as new figures suggest the UK's population grew by a record amount at the end of the last government.
This sort of increase is unprecedented. It's off the scale, what has happened in 4 short years.
Promises on immigration have been broken for years and years and years. We ask, what is the likelihood that that will change now?
A former soldier who escaped and went on the run from Wandsworth Prison is found guilty of spying for Iran. After 50 years, a new treatment for asthma sufferers. We'll tell you why researchers think it's so promising. And why the Princess of Wales is leading tributes to a terminally ill teenager who she met last month, who has died at the age of just 17.
On BBC London, as MPs prepare to vote on whether to allow people in certain circumstances the right to choose when to die, we hear both sides of the debate.
Here's what's still ahead. Jail time for the gang involved in prolific phone theft. How long will they be behind bars? Frank Lampard gets back in the game. We'll tell you which club he's heading to. Time to swipe left. Why people are falling out of love with dating apps. He's mastered the stunts and now he's hoping to top the charts. Why Ed Davies joined the race for this year's Christmas #1.